Let's get it.
So as always, we like to welcome y'all to Keep It Thorough Thursdays, episode 57. Today, we're going to be talking about leveraging good debt. Our last episode, we kind of talked about debt, what debt was, kind of how to manage it. We also mentioned that not all debt was bad debt, but we didn't really, kind of get off into that. So that's what we wanted to do in this episode, So another Money Matters, follow that up. Talking about how to leverage good debt. So as always, it's your boy E-Double.
Yeah. What's up, good people? Cedric Lavelle here, and thank you for tuning in to Keep It Thorough Thursdays, where we just give you the real behind business, money, health, and self-development. Like E said, this particular episode is about leveraging good debt, and just kind of going through some of the ins and outs and some of the common things that you hear as it relates to debt, and how to approach it, and what certain things mean, and what opportunities could potentially be presented to you by leveraging debt and doing some of the more responsible things as it relates to debt. So hopefully this can be something that's beneficial for all the listeners, that you can gain something out of it. And let's go, bro. Let's get into it.
Hey, so let's get into it. So before we kick it off, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about debt, right? Like I know a lot of old heads, growing up, they talk about cash and cash is king and this, that, and the third. And the reality is cash really ain't the king, right? Credit is king, and knowing how to properly understand debt and leverage debt is very important to your financial stability, success, you know what I mean? And especially as we talk about generational wealth, right? So with all that being said, let's get into it. Too good to be true. All debt is not bad debt. So so what is this thing we talking about, Sid? How is debt not a bad thing, right? How is all debt not bad debt?
So basically going back to what you just said about, when people would say, cash is king, and not mention certain things about credit, and also just properly managing your credit, right? And so when debt can be handled correctly, what can be considered an adversary, in a sense, can become an ally, right? Like debt can become something that can be useful for you and be beneficial for you if appropriately handled, right? If you do all the things and check off all the boxes before you go into accumulating debt. You know what I'm saying? Like having a set idea of what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the outcome needs to be, and what will be the process of repaying that debt back as time progresses, right? And so there's so many different things that you can be exposed to or take advantage of by leveraging debt, but you really have to be very specific about the route that you take and the reasoning behind doing it. I think what a lot of people run into when it comes to debt is taking on debt for things that don't offer you any value, right? Like they don't build up any assets.
Taking on debt on liabilities and not assets.
Right. It's not, you're not taking on the debt to contribute to something outside of, wanting to take a vacation or stun or buy certain things, and not have a concrete plan of how you want to go about paying for it. You know what I'm saying? Or repaying it. So that's where a lot of people fall into these situations where you get into debt, and it's challenging for you to get out of debt, but you went into debt for all the wrong reasons, right? Yeah. It's like you didn't have a plan that you were going to put in place in order to get you out of the situation. It was like, oh man, I just want to get this new.
And I'm happy you said that, right? So our last conversation on debt, I think kind of more so highlighted the negative aspects, right? And to the point that you just made, I think a lot of people look at debt as supplemental income, right? As in additional income, right?
Yeah.
I can't afford this, with the money that I make, but if I go get this credit card, then I can buy it, and then I can spread out these payments so that I can, pay on it monthly, make the minimum payments, right? Which is now you're paying interest on it and making, and that's not what we're talking about on this episode. Yeah. That's not, we're talking about using debt as a tool, right? and using it as leverage, right? Because to understand credit and how to properly understand that is to understand leverage.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? How you can,
absolutely.
use that to your benefit. So
Spot
just wanted to highlight
on.
that.
Yes, sir. And so when it comes to debt, three things that you want to know, right? So debt can advance growth, debt can also acquire assets, and debt can also accelerate your credit, right? So advanced growth, more specifically from a business standpoint, when you're taking on debt from a business standpoint, it allows you to advance your growth. It allows you to invest in certain things that can potentially scale your company. It allow you to invest in people. It allow you to invest in equipment, certain things that can get your business going and moving in a more positive direction, right? And so with that debt, you're basically looking at it from a standpoint of, I know if I can build my brand or build my business with this debt, what I'll make from it would allow me to pay back whatever debt I took on, right? And so it's just about the approach and handling that situation responsibly and knowing what the vision and the process is in order to repay the debt back off, right? Then the next thing is just going to be acquiring assets. So there's so many different things that you can acquire when it comes to debt, if you're taking the right approach, whether it be something in real estate, whether it be in your business, whether it be on things that can, create passive income and additional flow of money coming in that you can contribute to. Those are some other things that you can take advantage of. And then when it comes to accelerating credit, right? And so with borrowing money, obviously, if you're borrowing money and you're paying it back on the statement date when it needs to be paid, your credit score can increase. In addition to that, if you're borrowing money and you're doing all the responsible things as it relates to properly managing your debt, that also opens up the opportunity for additional perks or different types of cards that can potentially become available to you. And sometimes those cards, if you go back through season one, we talked about certain rewards and things like that you can take advantage
credit card
of.
points and rewards.
Yeah, credit card points and rewards, right? And so that's something else that you can take advantage of and have whenever you're taking on or leveraging good debt, right? And so most importantly, you just want to make certain that you're being responsible with how you're managing debt, being responsible about the approach that you're taking to debt. As we go through these slides, we're going to, on the last slide, we're going to go through some questions that you'd want to ask yourself, to make certain that it's something that you want to potentially do when making that investment or taking on that debt. So, those three things that you want to know: growth, assets, credit, when leveraging debt.
So cool. So moving on to the next segment, right? Cost to reward. So to pick up on Ced's last point about accelerating credit or not even necessarily picking up on that point, right? I guess just asking the question, well, what if I have the cash, right? Like, is there any benefit to debt, right? Like, why can't I just pay for this in cash, right? And so I'm going to list out 5 ways to leverage debt. And then the first example, I'm actually going to cover that scenario, right, of why you wouldn't necessarily want to use cash and why you'd want to actually take on the debt and take out a mortgage on the property instead, right? So the first of the 5 ways of leveraging debt that we have here is investing in real estate. And the reason you wouldn't want to just buy a property cash as opposed to taking a mortgage out on it, right, and taking on that debt is because, one, the interest that you pay on a mortgage is tax deductible, right? And your tenant is paying your principal as well as the interest, and you're still making money on that, right? And then you get to also now take that interest that the tenant paid and write that off on your taxes, right? Which is a benefit. Another reason is, say I have 100,000 and say it has 100,000, right? And say there's a property that's 100,000, right? And say it comes from the belief that, hey, I pay for everything in cash. I'm not taking on any credit. So say it goes and buy that property, $100,000 cash. So he doesn't have a mortgage. He doesn't have to pay any interest. So he takes and gets to pocket whatever he charges that tenant for rent, right? So say you're charging on a $100,000 property, the rent probably pretty low. So let's just say $400, right? You're making $400 a month. So now me, on the other hand, I take my 100,000, and instead of investing in buying that one property, I go put 20,000 down on 5 properties, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm making money on each of those properties. Now, granted, I got to pay a mortgage on those properties. So instead of me getting a whole $400 off of one property, I'm getting maybe $100 from each of those properties. So now I'm making 500. Now I'm get my math to make sense,
You
right?
got 500.
$500. Said taking home 4, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to accelerate my wealth way faster now, because now I'm getting appreciation from 5 properties instead of 1. I also get to write off the interest that all of those tenants paid across 5 properties. Said doesn't get to write that off. And then there's tons of other benefits that go into play, which is why it's better to use the credit and debt versus using cash, right? So real estate, that's one way to leverage debt effectively. Another one is starting a business. Some of the same concepts, right? You'll use the cash flow from the business to pay off the loan, and then there's access where then you make you make profit, right? So same similar concept of real estate, just not as many different ways to make money. But with starting a business is simple. And go back to the point said, made, right? If the debt that you're taking on, the payments to pay off that debt is less than the money you can make from the investment every month, right? So your debt payment is $400 a month, but you're generating $1,000 a month off of what you were able to purchase with that debt. That's a win, right? That you're at that point, it was an investment. It's not a negative. It's a positive, right? Another way is by refinancing, right? And this can work in a few different ways. So say you have, like an example I gave where I invested 100,000 in 5 properties, right? I can refinance those properties and pull equity out, right? Which now I'm taking on a new form of debt, right? By refinancing. But now I can pull that money out and reinvest it again and buy me more real estate properties, right? Now, another way you can do that is say you're refinancing on your own personal home, right? Like your home where you live. You can refinance in a similar way. Say you've paid down your principal, and you also have appreciation, right? Which we've talked about before. In the United States, I believe appreciation has like been 6% per year since like 1940, I believe. So anyway, so now you have a lot of equity in your home, right? So you refinance, pull that out, and now you use that to start a business, or you use that to pay for college. That can be considered an investment, right? Whatever the case may be, but refinance. And that's a way where you can, by refinancing your home, you're technically taking on more debt. And typically the loan amount is going to be higher, or it is going to be higher because you're tapping into that equity, but then you're spreading it back out over those 30 years. But if whatever you can invest that money in nets you more money than what you're paying for that loan, that's a positive. Next is debt consolidation. And this is an interesting one, right? So say you're in a situation where you have a lot of debt. And then if you learn from our last episode, you have a lot of high interest debt, right? What you can do is run the numbers. It might be worth taking that high interest debt, some of the lower interest that you got, and consolidating it all into there's a lot of debt consolidation companies, right? Consolidating it into one loan, right? That's lower interest. And then that'll save you money every month. You know what I'm saying? And then the savings that you're making, or that you're netting every month from not having to pay that towards debt, you can use that for something else,
Right.
that can generate you some money, right? But so another way to leverage debt, because you're taking on new debt and paying less interest, by consolidating it. And then last but not least is home renovations. You can refinance your house or take out a renovation loan, and if that's going to add equity to your house now, and then you sell it, or if you're just doing this just for your family to just add equity. It'll add equity to the house, right, or value to the house, but you don't necessarily got to sell it. It could just be for your family to make it more enjoyable, right? Because all benefits don't necessarily have to be financial. It could be a family thing, right? We typically spend most of our time at our homes, right, with our family. So if you're investing something or doing some renovations to make your home more pleasant and enjoyable for your family, that's also a gain. That's a benefit, right? Absolutely. So yeah, that's just 5 examples of how you know, taking out a loan and taking on debt can be leveraged to generate additional income that'll then pay off that debt, and you know, you're profitable, right? And that's really the moral of the story when it comes down to leveraging debt, right? Like, just make sure that when you're taking on debt, that you ask yourself some questions, which we're about to get into in a second. So what's the impact, right? So debt can be costly, but wisely utilized, it leads to favorable outcomes. Don't be fearful of growth opportunities with debt because you lack an understanding of the nuances. Instead, educate yourself and consider the cost or reward to determine if the risk is worth the investment, right? So run your numbers, you know, look at it, and then ask yourself some questions, which leads us to the pre-checklist. So what are some questions you should ask yourself before taking on new debt, right? Said, you want to go knock out the first ones, and I'll knock out the last three.
Yeah, that's a bet. I do the first four, you do the last three. So one, what's the purpose of the debt, right? What is the money being used for, and is it necessary? So just like we were talking about on the first slide, right? Don't be out here spending your money on frivolous things. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to take on debt, you definitely want to use it for something that's going to be an investment, but it's going to give you a return, right? Like, don't spend your money and use it on something that offers you nothing in return. Nothing that's going to allow you to be able to pay off that debt and get yourself in a better financial position.
And they've literally made it where you can finance everything these days, man. You literally can go finance shoes. Go finance shoes, man. Go, you know.
What's that service where you pay like monthly for it or something?
I know
like that. Like,
what you're talking about. I can't think of the name.
Yeah.
But that's unnecessary debt. That's bad use of money and money management. If you can't afford the $200 shoes, then just save up and then go buy them, right? Because that's not like an investment. You know what I mean? You can't make any money. And people, well, I could sell them when I'm done. Well, yeah, but you're not going to get what you paid for them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's still a loss.
Yeah, it is. Next one, affordability. Can the debt be realistically paid back based on the current or the future income, right? And so, like you were saying, running the numbers, you know what I'm saying? Look at the numbers, what you're going to be paying over time. Is it affordable? Is what you're currently making, can that potentially take care of it? Or what you're going to be making in the future, right? If there's a projection that you've already made and you know for a fact that this is something that can happen, where you have an influx of money coming in that you know can pay it off, okay, that, again, it's a risk that you're taking, but if the risk is worth that investment, go for it. You know what I'm saying? Take that chance, and then just make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's as you go through the process of doing that. You know what I mean? And then the next one, the repayment terms. How long will it take to repay the debt? And what are the monthly payments, right? And so you definitely want to do your due diligence of seeing everything that entails with taking on that debt and understanding what the repayment terms are, right? Like, look at the debt. How much is it? Budget it. You know, we've had an episode where we're talking about budgeting, right? You want to make certain that you know what you have coming in, know what you have going out, and then just make certain that everything is detailed. That way you know where you stand from a financial standpoint to be able to meet the repayment terms. You know what I mean? And then the last one is what are your other financial obligations, right? So how does this debt fit into your overall financial goals and the current financial commitments that you have, right? So you want to look at all your bills, and that just goes into budgeting, right? You want to look at everything that you pay for from an expense standpoint. What do you pay for throughout the month? What are some of the things that you know you have to pay at a certain date, or you have a deadline, whatever the case may be, but you want to make certain that you keep those things into consideration because those are all contributing factors on if you're leveraging good debt and you're going to be able to reap the benefits of it, or if you're putting yourself in a potential complex or challenging situation where you may not be able to, finagle your way out of it. You know what I'm saying? And so just those particular 4 questions, you definitely want to ask those things because that
we still got.
Well, yeah,
no,
no,
like we ain't got 3
months. my four was the ones you want to ask, but you're going to come with the last three, and then it's going to equal out to seven.
Yeah.
And then, you know what I'm saying? Then we good. I wasn't going to cut you off there, bro. You got it. Go ahead.
No, you good. So number 5, right? Long-term financial implications, right? What are the long-term consequences on taking on this debt? So I'll go back to the investing in real estate, like a rental property example, right? It's always a great idea to think of the worst case scenario as well as the best case scenario. Too many times what I see is people fall in love with the idea of a business and not the finances of a business, right? You got to fall in love with the finances of a business. Like I get people do certain things because it's a passion for them and they love it, right? But business, the point of business is to make money, right? So you got to look at the worst case scenario as well as the best case scenario, right? So if you buy that rental property and you can't rent it out for a year, can you afford that?
Right.
Can you pay the mortgage on that property and your mortgage and, you know, all your finances? That's something you can manage, right? So that's obviously a negative, but, you know, look at the positives too, right? So say you rent it out. Okay, how much money are you going to make? Right? How, you know, what does that look like with paying off that loan? Right? Like, did your numbers make sense? Are you undercharging the tenant?
Mm-hmm.
Are you, you know, so very important to look at the long-term consequences, right? And how that plays out, both good and bad. And to be honest with you, I typically lead with the worst case scenario, right? Expect the worst and pray for the best, right?
Yeah.
Next on the list, number 6 is interest rate. We could kind of really slash this and say APR, right? But what is the interest rate and how much will it cost you over time? And it's just, if you go back to our previous episode, we talked not in great detail, but explained APRs and interest rates and how APRs include not only the interest rate, but all other fees that you have to pay to acquire the loan. So underwriting fees and everything, it gets rolled up into one, right, which is the APR. But very important to understand that and understand the importance of interest rates, right? Like we gave the example last week on the episode where, you know, a person with a 2.5% interest rate versus a person with a 7% interest rate on like a $250,000 home over 30 years. And I don't remember exactly what the difference in payment was, but it was around like $500. You know what I mean? So interest rates matter, right?
Yeah.
And pay attention, know what you're paying. Don't just, you know, if you're in a situation where you're credit challenged, right? Don't just go around and try to find whoever will approve you and take whatever you can get. Don't do that. That's a recipe for disaster. And you know, that's not leveraging good debt. That's the complete opposite, right? And then 7 on the list is alternatives. Are there any other financing options that may be more affordable or suitable? And sticking with the whole real estate investment example, you know, there's hard money lenders where you may not need to go through a bank, where they may have more favorable terms, especially right now with the interest rates. One of the main things people don't like about hard money lenders is they typically don't have as long of terms and the interest rates are typically higher, right? So they think of it as more of a short-term way to get access to some capital. Well, right now, interest rates are super high. Hard money lenders is very close to interest rates at the bank, you know what I'm saying? So look, you know, just look at, or if you can leverage somebody else's capital, which in the form of investors, right? Which, and that's where you really start playing the game, where you don't got to go to a bank. You can just go to an investor where they just get some equity into your company. And then you just pay them back their initial investment, right? Which is a whole nother way. So look and see if there's any alternatives where you don't got to necessarily take on the debt yourself, but you still can leverage it, right? You leveraging other people's debt or other people's money. You know what I'm saying? And there's a saying for that, right? Other people's money, OPM, or something in the book, right? Other people's money. But yeah, you want to hit us with the final thoughts?
Final thought, yes, sir. So debt can lead to significant loss, but when used appropriately, it can multiply your wins, right? The idea that all debt is bad, debt is a misleading perception toward a tool that can afford significant earning potential. Using other people's money is a way to fund an opportunity, right? So ask yourself the right questions to make a decision that can set you up for future success, right? And so, like you just said, using other people's money is a way to fund an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? And so if it comes to that situation, whether it be other people as in, you know, an investor, or other people as in a
The
banking
bank.
institution, whatever the
Exactly.
case may
Yeah.
be. See it as an opportunity to where it's funding something that can lead to a favorable outcome, right? And that's the most important thing that you have to realize, right? So outside of asking yourself these 7 questions that we laid out, you really want to make certain that the reasoning that you're wanting to take on debt is to have a favorable outcome to, 1, pay it off, and 2, set you up for financial success and financial gains as you progress and as you come out of the debt, right? And making sure that you're not just doing it because you want to keep up with the Joneses, or you want to be able to afford a certain lifestyle and things of that nature, right? That's like we've said, that's not taking on or leveraging good debt,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's getting yourself in financial
Don't
ruin.
use debt as supplemental income. That is not extra money.
Right.
That's not what it is, right? And you have to be responsible with it.
You got
For
to
sure.
pay that back.
Yeah.
You
And
know
really,
what
like
I'm saying?
to what you just said, you want to pay. You want to find the most favorable. If you need to leverage the debt, if you need to take on the debt, you need to find the most favorable interest rate and APR as possible, right? You want to pay it back as quickly as possible, right? And you want to make sure that you know your numbers to the T when it comes to how much are my debt payments every month and how much money am I generating from this investment every month, right? And those numbers have to make sense. There can't be wiggle room. You don't want to have them real close. You don't just want a separation of a couple $100 or something like that, right? Like you need to give yourself some wiggle room so if some don't work out, you still are profitable,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, definitely want to make certain that what you're getting in is significantly more than what you took out. You know what I'm saying? That way you're not only paying off your debt, but you also have something left over to reinvest back into your business, reinvest back into yourself, reinvest back into your team, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? So just making certain that you're being mindful of the play. You know what I'm saying? Be mindful of the play that you're making, knowing everything, knowing the details. And it's really just changing your perception on debt. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like a lot of times, especially, when we came up, and I know you speak the same thing, like it wasn't no like taking on no debt or having credit. Like you said, it was cash. It was like don't get yourself in debt. All debt was pretty much
Yeah,
bad debt. It's like there's
no,
no such
exactly.
thing
Don't get
as
credit cards,
good debt. Right.
even still to this day. And I'm gonna be honest, like I don't agree with Dave Ramsey a lot of the times because Dave Ramsey has I think his perception is shaped from somebody who's kind of always had money to a certain extent. Like if you followed his advice, it would make it very hard to do certain things because he's not in favor, or Mark Cuban, he's not in favor of like credit cards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, nah, man, that's
I know
one
you
person's opinion.
Grant Cardone, he'd be like, debt, take it on. You know?
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Like you just have to be mindful and smart and have a plan and a strategy and just not out here mindlessly just applying. Oh, what can I get approved for? Like just throwing it all at the board and seeing what sticks, right? Like, no, don't do that. Like pay attention, right? Don't take on those high interest credit cards or high interest loans. You know what I'm saying? Like go find somewhere where you can get a more favorable loan and where the numbers make sense. Really as simple as that.
And everybody is different though too. You know what I'm saying? So if your route and your philosophy is more of like a Dave Ramsey or Mark Cuban, whatever fits you, that fits you. You know
Whatever works for you works, right? Just make sure you're moving in the right direction, and that direction is minimizing your debt and increasing your assets, right? So whatever you're doing, if you're doing that, cool. But what I do want to stress, and this is very important, is by trying to use cash for everything, you're going to handicap yourself because you only have so much capital, right? And if say you got 100,000 right now to invest in a property, like the example we gave earlier, and you do that, how long is it going to take you to make another 100,000 to invest in another property? That's going to take you a while. Whereas if you took that 100,000 and spread it out across a couple properties, right, and then just wait a year or two, let those properties increase in value, you know, appreciate, refinance, tap into some of that capital because they're also paying down your principal, your tenants are. And then you can take that and now buy even more properties. And now your monthly income that you're generating is way higher than what it would have been if you just used that 100,000 to buy that one property.
Right.
And now it took you another 10 years to say, or not however long, to save up another 100K, right? So don't handicap yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really the point about leveraging debt. It's allowing you to really, you know, kind of spread your wings and give you more leverage than you would have otherwise, because you don't have that capital yourself, right? So OPM, other people's money, whether it's bank, hard money lenders, friend, investor, you know, wherever, whoever, you know,
hey,
just be smart
friend,
about it.
Would you want to invest in my business, bro? You want to put some money? I don't know. I just feel like this.
Well, I don't know, because I feel like we did already. That's what's going on right now.
Nah.
Hey, but we greatly appreciate y'all. We've been saying for a long time, a lot of big things is coming, and they here. I'm gonna just say that. You know what I mean? Absolutely. They here. We are officially on all popular podcast platforms.
Yeah.
So whether you listen to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeartRadio or Google Podcasts, or I don't even know the names of some of the other ones that we own, but we own them.
wherever you
know what I'm saying? So you know what I mean? And then on top of that, we're on YouTube. You can check us out on YouTube now. What else, man? The website officially launches tomorrow. I don't have the hat on, and of all times not to wear the hat, this is the day that I should have wore the hat.
You're getting fined for that.
But so y'all be able to purchase the hats on the website tomorrow. But yeah, man, we said a lot, and with all that said, right, there's even way more to come, you know. So just be on the lookout. What you guys said before we close this thing out?
Down, you know what I'm saying? Getting it all done. Hey, bro, we've done a lot over a month's time span. Obviously, we've been at this Keep It Thorough thing since 2021 December. Right, and we've done
October, November.
Right. Well,
you got to count the planning and
planning everything, right?
Yeah.
But we introduced this to people, to the world, whatever you want to say, December of 2021, and we've done 50 episodes. We on 57 episodes over that time, right? Once 2023,
we closer to 100 than zero.
Hey, there it is, bro. But once 2023 started, we knew what we wanted to do for this year, and this is really like our scaling, right? Like we've started off at one point, and right now we're kind of like scaling our brand and scaling our business with the website and some additional things that we're doing. But we've done a lot in one month's time span. Like Eric, I want to say maybe the last episode or maybe a couple episodes back where we talked about, you know, how a lot of the things that we're doing, and as we're going through the process, we're going to start shaping a lot of our live streams and conversations around what we're currently doing, right? Just to give you all just a play-by-play of how certain things kind of unfold, how certain things are created. I know we're going to be doing something on Keep It Thorough and how that situation got started and some of the things that went through that process, you know, how we were able to build our website in such a quick manner, and some of the key pieces that Eric and I both have that contributed to doing something in such an exponential way. But there's a lot of different things that we're going to do, a lot of different concepts that we're going to bring to the surface that we feel would be beneficial. You know what I mean? And so we just appreciate everybody who's always tuned in.
Shout out to all the real ones, man. Hashtag real ones, man.
Hashtag, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what it's all about. You know what I mean? Just doing everything that we can to create impact, you know, and help everybody live a thorough lifestyle, man. So I'm excited.
And that hope goes both ways, man. Because like we're students in this thing called life, right?
Yeah.
So we're continuously learning, and we try to share the information that we learn, and then learn new information and continue to share it. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
So we're students. This not only we hope that this helps y'all, right? But it not only helps y'all and it's beneficial to y'all, it's also helping and beneficial to us. So we love it, man. But y'all be sure to check out the website. tomorrow. Go ahead, support, grab a hat. You know
I
what I
don't even
mean?
think do we have a time that we wanted
I'm
to
saying,
drop it?
I just say midnight. Just, you
Midnight?
know,
Okay.
you ready?
That's past my bedtime, bro. I can't
Go.
be
Hey,
up
well,
for
cool.
midnight.
That's the beauty of automation and
Oh,
technology. We could be
okay,
sleeping, it
all right,
still
all
could
right.
be working.
I'm
So we
usually in
good.
bed by 11:30 p.m. somewhere around there, 11:45ish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
But I might set my alarm clock that way. 12 o'clock. Then you know what I mean. That'll
Yeah,
work.
no.
Whatever
Hey,
works,
well,
bro.
we good, and we greatly appreciate y'all. So however you consume this content, we appreciate y'all. Be sure to share it with a friend, family, whatever. But
Oh yeah,
big stuff is here, and we got more big stuff to come. And with all
absolutely.
that said, if you don't do nothing else,
Keep it
keep it
thorough.
thorough, and we'll holler at y'all
Till
next
next
time.
time.
Deuces.